In this portion of the demonstration, we're going to take a look at wire harness design in Solid Edge ST3, and we're going to use the Iron Eagle to take a look at this functionality built into Solid Edge. The first thing that we want to do is change our display configuration so we can focus in on this design task, and this is going to be 07 wiring. Once the information is turned off, we can kind of zoom up and see that I've already started the design of our wires and a cable. And so the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and change in by going into the harness design. Now in Solid Edge ST3 harness design, our users are able to create wires, cables, bundles, and through the harness wizard we can read from information from a third-party ECAD system to quickly create a full harness, and we'll take a look at that as well. But to begin with, let's go ahead and start simple just by creating a wire, and you can see that we've got a couple of components here that we want to hook up with our starter on this model. So I'm going to click on the wire command. And then basically the system asks us down here to go ahead and click circular edges, vertices, or in space to start our path. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and identify the cylinder where I want to start my wire. And I'm just going to use the from to technique to go into the starter. And then with the right mouse button click, it's going to bring up a dialog where our users can easily select what size wire they want to place. Now 22 gauge is great, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the 22 gauge solid copper cyan, and I'm going to accept that. And then I'm going to begin my second path. Now you can see that there's 3 wires needed here, so I'm just going to go from one component to the next. Now we started on the top component, so let's go finish by going down to the bottom component. Once we accept that, in this case, let's change our color. Maybe we'll go to a green and accept that. And you'll notice that it does change the wire color, the wire path color, so it gives you an indication as to at least the color of that particular wire. At any time we can go back in and change the properties of that wire if we need to. And then for our third and final wire for our starter, we'll bring it up and go into the cylinder that's available there, and again selecting the size, and in this case the color, and we'll just do a solid copper orange. Now once that's complete, you're going to notice that the wires have been created. If we go over to Pathfinder, you'll notice that the wires are created there, 21, 22, and 23. But they really don't follow anything. They just go from the components to the component, the starter component. And what we really want to do is route them much like we did with this previous wire path using a cable. So let's take a look at that option. By selecting the cable command, the system first prompts the user to identify the actual wires that are going to be included in the cable. Now in order to do that, I'm just going to come down and I'm going to select those 3 wires that we just created. By selecting those 3 wires and accepting them, then the cable takes us into the path step to create the actual path for the cable. Now I'm just going to click a point in space down here just to start the path, but then I'm going to pick up the cylinder to kind of run this cable through the cylinder and through the side wall, and then over to you'll notice I have a circular sketch here, so I'm going to change my option to go through that sketch and accept it. And at that point, just like when we're creating a wire, we can come down and we can select maybe a 14 3-gauge white cable and accept that. Now once we're done with that, you're going to notice that the cable that we created, we just kind of digit a point in space, and so we need to make a little bit of a change to the location of that start point. So what I'm going to use is quick pick just to identify that point, and I'm going to straighten this out by moving it into position. And you can see here we can just kind of adjust it so that it allows us to do that. So it's real easy to create the cable. You'll notice how the cable is routed through the components. And another thing that we can do is we can also take a look at the cable that was created. You notice it included the 3 wires that were created here. Now another way to kind of see what's happening is to actually create what we call physical conductors. So by right mouse button clicking on the harness itself, we can come down and create a physical conductor, and it'll actually create the physical wires, kind of give us a better idea of what they actually look like. And you can see the cable, where the cable starts, and of course we can adjust that start point at any time, and we can route it through the side of the wall and up over and then into the starter, just like we were wanting to do. So once that's done and we can see that everything looks to be okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off some of this information just by turning off the wire paths. I'm also going to hide the sketches. Now if I need to make any other types of changes, maybe a design change, I can come up to the face priority option and I can zoom in, and you'll notice here, if I, for example, using Quick Pick, I pick up the cylinder, the hole inside of this side wall here, I can take and I can adjust just by moving that hole if I want. And you notice the top hole is in line with it, so it's going to move as well. And as soon as I click to place, it adjusts my wires into the correct position. So it's real easy to make a change. In this case, I grab the primary axis, I'm going to pull it up a little bit closer, and the cable is going to automatically adjust to those changes. So it's easy to manipulate the wires once they're created, but we've created wires and cables, and creating a bundle is virtually the same technique that we use to create the wire and the cable. Now another thing that I think is a benefit to the wire harness design is the capability to read information in from an ECAD system. For example, I want to be able to create a wire or multiple wires and cable that understand components. For example, I have these 2 components and I have a couple of components on the engine, and I'd like to be able to read information into those components. One of the key things with that is, though, you have to be able to name the components. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify this part, and I'm going to open this part in Solid Edge. And then if we go to the Tools tab, you'll notice that there's an Assign Terminals command. And what this command does is it allows our customers to be able to go in and actually assign a component name to this part, and then also to be able to assign terminal names. And here I've just named the terminals 1 through 8. So when I read information in from an ECAD system, I can directly tell it to run the cable or the wires to the component name, and then which wire goes to which terminal. And it's a way that we allow our customers to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this file up and go back to our design, and then I'm going to kick off this harness wizard, which is going to bring up this 3-step dialog. Now you can see that the document format we can read from third-party systems, but for this I'm just going to use a Solid Edge sample. I've already generated a component and a connection document, and the component's name is engine.cmp, and the connection document, basically the terminals, is called engine.con for connection. So once the first step is satisfied, you can go to the second step. And from that information, it's going to tell you the unique identifier. There's a component name, and that's the relay that we just looked at. and I gave it a description of relay switch. It tells us that the assembly is already populated with this component. If you want to manually do this on the fly, we give you tools to assign the component and assign the occurrence right on the fly while you're in the assembly running this dialog. It also gives us the actual occurrence name, the actual part name that we're using. So once that step is completed, we go to the final step, which is basically the wire name and the from component to component, from terminal to terminal names, as well as the attribute, the color of the wires, and the actual cable attributes. Now, when the cable is marked in orange, it means that we need to select the correct size, and when you do that, it automatically picks up and changes those sizes for you. You can also, at any point in time, maybe select, for example, wire 7, and if I click on preview, it's going to show you where that wire will be created from and to. And then, of course, we have some connection options. With that, once I click on the Finish button, it's going to very quickly generate the cable and the wires from those components. And there's the relay. So we created 3 wires from the relay into this particular cable that goes to different parts of our motor. So you can see the advantage of being able to read in from an ECAD system, how quick it is, and the tools that we offer that allow you to name the component and the terminals, whether you want to do it beforehand or on the fly. Now we need to make a few adjustments. So if I come down and use Quick Pick, I can select the blue dot, and I can make an adjustment so that the wires aren't crimped or pinched, I should say. And then I can come down and maybe make an adjustment here. The other cool thing is that once you make those kind of adjustments, if you want, you can also adjust the wires. For example, I can come down and grab the wire path, and you notice that I can adjust what the wire looks like. And once you're in the edit mode, you can just select the wires and make adjustments. And you will need to make adjustments on occasion. And it just kind of shows you the flexibility that Solid Edge offers in this environment. Now once that's done, of course, one of the coolest tools is to be able to kind of see what this looks like. So I always like to come down and do a create physical conductors so that it actually turns on the cables, or the cable that was created, and the wires that come out of each one of the components. And very quickly we have a full harness created by reading that information in from an ECAD system. So at that point, again, I'm going to turn off the wires, and I can even hide all of the blue dots just to turn that information off, and you see nothing but the cables and the wires that we've created. If we go to the tools options, I think it's also nice for the user to be able to create reports, and we do allow the user to create from the harness environment harness report on the actual components that were used, as well as the connections. So if I click on the components and click on the format, it'll see the information that's in this particular report. We do have options that you can go in and add more information to the right side, and the right side is what is actually displayed in your reports. If we cancel out, we can go to the connectors and we can view the same information, but in this case we're looking at the from component ID name and terminal name, and the to component ID and terminal, and what cable was used and the diameter. So you can see this information is valuable information that can be output if it needs to be. So this gives you a kind of a quick overview of the wire harness environment built into Solid Edge ST3, where our users can quickly go in and create wires, cables, bundles, and even read information in from an ECAD system to achieve their wiring goals within the projects that they're working in. So with that, this completes the wire harness demonstration.